Coming up on the Pioneer Sideline, bitter end. Both soccer teams fall short in the conference tournament. We break down the games and results.
The race to Vancouver, both cross-country teams moving on to the national championship meet. But one came out on top as the conference champions.
Plus the latest on a coaching change as one team prepares for a postseason run.
And our annual roundtable look at the basketball teams. Let's waste no more time and head on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Josh Troop alongside Mike Turk. We begin tonight with a developing story. Mike Bruno is out as volleyball coach at Point Park after 13 years. The athletic department announced Friday that Bruno was removed from his duties with one game remaining on the regular season schedule.
The department released this following statement. Point Park University volleyball head coach Mike Bruno has been relieved of his duties at the school. He was the head coach of the Pioneers the last 13 years. As a matter of established policy, Point Park University will not comment further on this personal matter. The remainder of the volleyball season will be under the direction of interim coach Bridget Bielich, who has been the assistant coach on the staff the last 3 years.
Yeah, Mike, and Bruno was the 2016 River States Conference Coach of the Year and has led the turnaround of the Point Park volleyball program as the all-time winningest head coach in the team's history. Mike, the players aren't saying too much about this change.
No, they are not allowed to speak out about the matter as of right now. We will see if anything else develops in the future about that, though.
And tell us about Coach B and what direction she could take this team in going into the conference tournament.
Coach B also coaches club teams, so that's a very positive light on this team. Mike Bruno was such a good recruiter, though, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of recruits they can bring in.
And there was still business to take care of for Point Park. The Pioneers traveled to NCAA Division II school IUP on Saturday in the regular season finale.
For a recap of that game, let's bring in our own Kiara Fry. Kiara, Point Park went to IUP, NCAA Division II team. A lot of distractions. How were they able to come out with a win?
The girls did very good in their offensive play. They had 46 kills total in the game, and they didn't back down at all throughout the matches, and they were just very consistent, I thought.
So a good victory for Point Park to close out the regular season on a high note with a couple of conference wins too. The last conference win, a 3-0 win against Carlo last week. A week ago tonight on senior night, so Bruno's last game. And going into this conference tournament then, where do the Pioneers sit amongst the rest of the River States Conference?
Well, the Pioneers ended up as the number 2 seed in the East Division, so they're going to be facing Asbury, who was the 3rd seed in the West Division.
Well, thanks a lot, Kiara. We'll look forward to this postseason run that the volleyball team has in the coming days. Now, speaking of postseason runs, Mike, the cross-country teams.
Oh, yes, Josh. Both teams took to Asbury University for the conference championship meet on Saturday. A familiar course for the team, running the same race just 2 weekends ago. First, the women's meet. Point Park claimed its second conference title in 3 years with the help of Anna Shields. She won the 5,000-meter race with her time of 18 minutes, 22 seconds. Point Park landed 4 of the top 10 runners. Head coach Kelly Parsley was named Coach of the Year for his second time since coming to Point Park.
And on the men's side, a second-place finish in the race means a national championship bid. Point Park finished behind Ohio Christian to earn the second of 2 spots at the national meet from the River States Conference. Xavier Stevens on the left side of your screen led the way for Point Park in 5th place overall. He joined Chris Hunt in the middle there in 10th place, and Desmond Morrow on the right there in 13th place as the all-conference qualifiers for Point Park. The men also returned to nationals as a team for the second time in 3 years. Now, here to talk about this team's race to Vancouver is our very own Nick Kosiski. Nick, welcome back. You hit the race course with the team with a little bit of an injury. You were able to make it out. What was the race course like for these teams?
Oh, the race course was very muddy, very, very treacherous. During my run, actually, I saw a guy ahead of me, and he was like bent over, and I'm like, oh, geez. So I turned around, I said, are you okay? He goes, keep going, and he just spit up all of his blood. It was
man.
it was like
Oh,
it was literally a war zone out there, and that scared me. I'm like, oh man, I got 2 miles left. Like, oh geez. But it was very muddy, very slippery. People were falling, they were sliding, but it was definitely an interesting course. But it was just a little bit, a little bit more, I guess, uneven than what we're used to. But.
You said a lot of obstacles with this course. Now, how big of an advantage was it that you guys had already ran there prior to this past weekend?
I actually didn't get to run the past weekend. I had a little bit of a mess up there.
He's brought the boot too. Okay.
But
the team, the rest of them.
the rest of the
Your
team,
teammates,
I felt like it was good that they went before, just so they had like an idea, especially because it's a course with like a lot of turns, and in cross country it helps if like when those turns are coming up, so you can get ready for them and get on the right side. But.
And finally, real quickly, what's the message on this team going into the national championships in 2 weeks in Vancouver, Washington, way across the country?
I think that our team is ready. They're even practicing right now for it. We have a very strong team, and I think that we're going to make a pretty good mark down in Washington.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Coming up next, the postseason is here.
And just like that, it's gone. How seasons ended for the men's and women's soccer team.
And later, we'll turn the page on fall and look ahead to basketball season. That's all coming up after the break.
T. Why should you watch and focus?
Because why not?
Turk. Why should you watch and focus?
Because I produce it.
Welcome to In Focus.
Hello. This is so we don't run out of time.
Put up a goal just
Right.
because it.
And a little bit closer, please. Let me bring this in. Yeah, I wanted to do a game. So game time.
All right, game over.
Yay.
Oh wow. Did we get that?
There he is. Why are you watching focus? Because in focus is great.
Chris! Game time! Game time!
It's not game time. It's a promo.
Start your morning with us. I'm your host, Jess Paterchek.
And I'm your host, Alex Grubbs.
Good morning and welcome to another episode
That is what
of
happened at the
Daybreak. I'm your
Cathedral
host,
on Monday.
Jess
WPXI, the state wants to
This is
take
Monday.
$357 million out of a trust fund that is
That
typically
wintry
devoted
mixed stuff could get me. I'm gonna care for you.
What up? The diva himself. Only on Daybreak.
55% of all U.S. multiracial adults have been subjected to racial slurs or jokes.
Where were you born? Being smart, pale, for a Filipino, to go back to Mexico.
There goes that black boy over there. You like fried chicken because you're light skinned. You are cocky. You think that you're better than us. The N-word.
They're good at jumping or climbing. Border hopper, made taco, English your second language. Where's your green card?
Cut the jokes. Stop the stereotypes.
Welcome back. The women's soccer team had a great weekend at home 2 weeks ago that led them to clinch a 3 seed in the conference tournament.
And that meant they got to host the quarterfinal game in the River States Conference Tournament. The 6 seed draw just so happened to be the team they met in last year's conference championship, Ohio Christian. Point Park won that game 2-0. Let's take a look at the highlights of the rematch right now. The River States Conference quarterfinal game at Highmark Stadium. The number 3 seeded Point Park 5-3-1 in the regular season. OCU 4-4-1. OCU beat Point Park 3-2 in the regular season. There were no goals in regulation, no goals in the first overtime, none in the second. 110 scoreless minutes of play. Ashton Webb in net for Point Park, outstanding. She had 10 saves to keep Point Park in the game, some acrobatic saves at points, a lot of chances on both sides, but none found the back of the net. Here's one of those chances in double OT. Noelle Hartle tried to sneak through a pass. Here, Chloe Bowser gets a free kick knocked around. That one almost went in, but the goalkeeper for OCU, Emily Boyd, makes the save, and we go to a shootout. Penalty kicks will decide this one. Webb in net makes the save. All you need is one save, and you have a chance. She makes that. And she turns around and takes the first PK. She scores. Ashton Webb, the player of the game in this one, makes it 1-0 in the first round. second round, OCU is going to get one back on Webb. They take the tie into the second round here in shootouts. Bailey Boyd. Oh, crossbar. Not your friend if you're Bailey Boyd here. OCU then, Brooke Wilhite connects 2-1 OCU. Morgan French, clutch, 2-2. OCU is able to get one back. Leading scorer for Point Park is Izzy Hunter, and it's stopped by Boyd. Hunter can't get it past her, so now Tori Williams for the win, beats Webb. Ohio Christian celebrates on Point Park's home field just as the Pioneers celebrated on theirs last year. 4-2, they advance on PKs. The Trailblazers move on to face number 2 Asbury Wednesday in the conference semis. Pioneers first time going to PKs since 2013, a game that Point Park beat Carlo 5-3 after a scoreless game.
Well, here now is our Delaney Bomas to talk about this team and this season. Delaney, you heard Josh talk about Ashton Webb and how great she was in that game and how great she's been all season for this team. But how big really was her contribution to this team?
Well, last year she didn't really start at all. She was more of a bench player, so her coming up in replace of Rebecca Cohen this year has been huge. She really kept them in a lot of games that they wouldn't have been in normally. So she was Defensive Player of the Week last week. She had 10 saves in the game. She was honestly the reason they kept going 0-0, and she's huge, and I think she made a great effort in stepping up this year and over a whole year, not just in this postseason.
And as it is normally with collegiate sports, at the end of the season, you're going to lose some players, your seniors. What big players are we going to be losing this season?
They're losing 5 key players: Izzy Hunter, Noelle Hartle, Bella Wilson, and Audra Lewis. I mean, those are just some big names that they're losing. They're really going to have to step up. But I think they have a big team. They have a couple people coming in new that is really going to help them out. And they have both of their goalkeepers coming back, which is going to help them in the long run. So, I mean, they're losing a lot of really big names and really good goal scorers and everything. So they just need to keep this momentum going because they had a great season, and I think they'll be great for next season.
Well, thank you so much for Delaney and for your coverage all season long. Now, the men didn't get to host a playoff game to open the playoffs, so they had to travel on the road to Beckley, West Virginia to face the Golden Bears of WVU Tech. Let's roll those highlights. WVU Tech got the best of Point Park 3-2 in the regular season at Highmark Stadium. Now we flip sides. Point Park, the 5 seed, WVU Tech, the 4 seed. This was going to be a barn burner. No score in the first half. Ryan Daniels in net for Point Park. He split time with Juan Somoza this season. Here's one of Daniels' 12 saves on the day. Makes it there, but the rebound comes all the way out, deflected by a defender, and from 35 yards out in the 51st minute, Francisco Neto makes it 1-0 off the crossbar. 75th minute, speedy Eduardo Gutierrez races down the sidelines and gets it past Daniels. Celebration on the Golden Bear sideline. It's 2-0. 85th minute we go. Pioneers strike back with a free kick. Josh Williams, his 3rd of the season, and it's a 1-goal game. Minutes remaining, but in the next minute, Gutierrez, racing down the sidelines again, gets a good lead pass to Mark Magallanes, and he sneaks it. There he is. Sneaks it right beside diving Daniels. 3-1 is the score with 4 minutes left. That is the final. Point Park finishes 11-6 overall. It's the 7th winning season in a row for the Pioneers and head coach Jeroen Wallstra.
We are now joined by Megan Masiosi, who has a little recap of the men's soccer season. Megan, I want to talk about the record first of all. They go 6-3 in conference play this season, 3-5 last year. What was working for this team this season?
Their offensive power, and I think that's what hurt them in this past game. WVT had 25 shots, and 15 of which were on goal, whereas Point Park only had 6 shots total. So their offensive power is what made them do very well this year in the regular season. Unfortunately, they could not take it to the postgame, which that was the difference.
Now I'm going to ask you about the same question I just asked Delaney. End of a collegiate year, you lose seniors. They're losing some big names here. They're losing their top gunner in Alan Ramos. Who else are they going to be losing, and how bad is this going to hurt them?
Well, yeah, like you said, they're losing Alan Ramos, but they're also losing Josh Williams, who was the only one who had a goal in that game. Granted, he's had some issues with keeping his temper, but when he was in, he was a difference maker. But they do have 2 sophomores stepping up. Roberto Whitley, who, again, if he can stay in the game, he did just as well, and same with Mark Bentley. So I think with the veteranship that they do have from these younger players, they'll do better. But Ramos, that's a killer. You're losing your captain and your #1 goal scorer for the last 3 years. that hurts. That really hurts.
It really hurts, and it's a tough conference to play in. WVU Tech and Rio Grande have really given this team problems. Thank you, Megan, for all of your coverage this season, and congratulations to the men's and women's soccer teams, both on just phenomenal years. Now, coming up next, we turn the page and look at our annual basketball roundtables.
A new year and a new facility, and of course, new players.
How the teams are looking heading into the 2017-18 season. That is coming up next.
I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too.
I tell these guys all the time to stick to talking sports and not playing sports.
Here we go. Ready? Didn't make it.
We had our first look at the women's basketball team at home Saturday at the brand new home venue at CCAC Allegheny.
Yeah, Point Park got the W against Georgetown College, and we got to see some of the Pioneers' new faces. Now, for all the scoop on that and more on the 2017-18 Pioneers, we bring in Allison Schubert and Rob Gomez. And now, Allison, we'll start with you. This new venue for the Point Park teams, you were there. What is the venue like at CCAC South? How does it differ from CCAC Allegheny? How does it differ from South?
Well, it's much bigger than CCAC South, which I think is a very big thing. The players have to take into account depth perception. The baselines are a little bit bigger, but especially the sidelines have a lot more room. Also, I feel like it has more of a college basketball feel. CCAC South was very small, had more of a high school feel, and there's more room for fans, so everyone can come out to the games.
Now, Pioneers picked 8th out of 13th in the preseason rankings, picked to finish 5th in the River States Conference East. They have some tough competition over there. How do you think they're going to match up against these teams?
Personally, I think they're underrated, and I think most of you would agree with me on that.
Yeah.
We have some big players back. We suffered from a lot of injuries last season, and we have a lot of new talent that hasn't had the chance to shine yet. So I think that we're very underrated, and I think that we can match up against some of these big teams.
I do agree. Probably one of the players, and we're only 3 games deep, but that has stood out is freshman Michelle Burns. You know, she came in, she got some playing time in the first game, but then started game 2 and really had a big impact. She had 13 points, 2 assists, and 4 steals, which, you know, as a freshman, first game starting, has a lot of nerves. She did really well in game, and then game 3, she comes back, you know, 12 points, but has 7 assists, which means she's, you know, getting more comfortable, learning how to share the ball, and so, like you said, a lot of depth on this team, and I think the rankings are really low for considering how much team they have.
Yeah, and we lost a lot of big names last year. Could you take us through? Oh, we got Coach calling in here. Who do we have? Who are we losing this year? I guess he doesn't like what we're saying. Who are we losing on this team this year that we've had the last few years?
You know, Carly Force probably going to be one of the biggest names. But with that, we get back. Blanking on her name here, Sam Weir. I don't know. I blanked on her name. We're getting her back because we all know that she was really injured last year, missed most of the season, and game 3 she came back game 3. And, you know, was a dominant force in that.
Now you had Bailey Bulika, is playing a lot down low last year. They didn't really have any big body presence down low. Is Coach texting you again, Rob?
I guess so.
It's a popular guy.
But now they add a 6'3" center, Carly Lutz. How much pressure is that going to take off of Bulika's shoulders?
I don't know if it'll necessarily take pressure away from her. As Rob mentioned, we have a lot of depth on this team now, and from what I saw at Game 3, Coach seems to put them in at opposite times, so it adds that height with both rounds of players that he's putting in. So it might take off a little bit of pressure, but I think that both of them are going to be really strong forces down low and a lot of rebounds.
Where do you see the team falling this year? Real quickly before we go to break, Rob, amongst this River State's conference, pick 5th in the division. Where do they fall at the end of the season?
You know, I can easily see them battling 1 or 2 for the spot, as long as, you know, everyone stays healthy.
That's the big part.
That's going to be the really big part. You know, like you said, they have the bigs, Bulika, Sam Weir, and also Carly Lutz. You know, she's another one of the, probably their biggest player on the team. And so with those 3 and the depth they have at guard, I'm expecting them to compete for 1 or 2.
And I completely agree with Rob. I think we could end up winning the conference, in all honesty, if everyone stays healthy, if everyone plays up to their full potential. It's a bold statement.
A
Very bold
scenario that we hope plays out at this. I mean, I certainly hope they win. It's been a while and long overdue wins for this team. Thank you, guys. Coming up next, you'll stick around. We'll talk about the men's teams.
And what their practice jerseys say about this year's team and how they're moving past last year. Don't go anywhere.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Josh Troop alongside Jess Paterchak.
Defending his decision to kick out 15 Cuban diplomats from the United States.
Thanks, Allison. Fitness on Demand has returned to Point Park.
Residents fear that Mount Agung will have a repeat of 1963's eruption.
2-star NFL quarterbacks made the headlines this week after wrapping up.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's your news tonight. For Nick Tomarello, I'm Alex Grubbs. Have a great night.
Right now, everybody's kind of bonding into the family atmosphere, and we're sharing the ball very well. So the way we play, the way we pass the ball, the way we make shots, that can make everybody very happy.
I'm gonna bring the energy every time, every second.
To keep trusting each other, keep playing with each other. Right now, you can see everybody got chemistry.
So that's whatever it takes to get that championship ring.
dudes that just want to play basketball, have fun, and win. Like, we want to win this year.
Come check us out this year. Point Park Basketball, we on our way.
Welcome back. It's time for the second half of our basketball roundtable discussion as we head into the 2017-2018 season. The men's basketball team failed to make the playoffs last season after an 8-20 regular season finish. The team was plagued with injuries and academic suspensions under interim head coach Gabe Boubon.
Now, Gabe is back officially as the head coach this season, and he had a chance to recruit some new talent to this year's team. His team's practice jerseys you may have saw this season have the text on the front that features last year's 8-20 record right on the front of the jerseys. This year, the team looks to turn things around and get back to being competitive in the River States Conference.
Let's bring back Allison Schubert and Rob Gomez. Rob, first of all, awesome package, man. You did a great job.
That was great.
That's getting me ready for the basketball season. Now, you spent a lot of time with this team in the preseason so far. You've shot a lot of footage for them. How are they gelling so far?
You know, pretty well. You know, I mean, just like any kind of basketball team, they have their little fights and arguments in practice, you know, about little things like that. But it looks really well. You see in the video that there was a lot of passing, a lot of movement. And, you know, I think with Coach Gabe Boubon and his system, I think if they're able to, you know, really pass the ball, get some good shots going, you know, pass the ball really well, play good defense, they have a real good chance to, you know, gel and good chemistry.
And you heard his voice in there. He's a newcomer. His name's Aaron Barlow. What can you tell us about this guy? He brings us something special to this team, a lot of energy.
You know, he kind of reminds me of a little bit of a Draymond Green type.
Yeah, I see that.
With the mouth and the attitude and all that, you know.
It's good.
You know, but a basketball team needs that. They really do need that. The type of attitude and swagger and confidence, you know, and that's what I think Anthony Barlow brings to this team.
Now, we're going to talk about Gavin Rajapale. Pretty much the glue of this team if you're looking at it on paper, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
He got picked to the second team All-River States Conference last year. I talked to him about that. He was a little disappointed. Preseason now picked 1 out of 10 players to be on the All-River States Conference team. How big is he going to be for this team this season if he can stay healthy?
Well, we've had 2 games so far, and you can already see his numbers are incredible. The first game, he had a career-high 39 points. So I think he's a huge force to this team. He is a very positive guy. He's one of the captains for the team, so he has a lot of impact on and off the court. So I think he's a huge asset for this team.
And in talking to Boubon about Gavin and his role going into this year, it seems like the coach wants to make him more of a distributor because that's the kind of point guard he is. He's not a guy that wants or has to go out and put up almost 40 every night. He's a guy that they want throwing out the ball and distributing it and bringing up the floor and finding those good passes.
Now, let's kind of talk about the kryptonite of this team now. What could possibly bring this team down? Last year we saw it with attitudes, we saw it with turnovers, offensive production, and grades. What could possibly be the kryptonite again to this team this season?
Well, besides the grades, I feel like they would need a good start. You know, that's the one thing with any team coming off a losing season is you don't want to start off the season again with going 2-3 games or even having just a few bad streaks. You know, I think if they were to have a good start to the season, you know, build some confidence, then, you know, good things will happen. But I think if they have a bad start, things could go the other way, and that's when tension starts with blaming players and the different things like that. But I think good start is where it needs to start.
And we'll wrap with this. Where do we see this team falling real quickly, Allison?
No, I'm not going to say the same thing I did with the women's about winning the conference, but I am going to say that I'm going to see an improvement. I think we can all see an improvement already with the team and the attitudes that they have going into the season. So definitely think that an improvement of 8-20.
Well, a transition year for Gabe Boubon. Let's see how good it is at the end of the season. All your coverage here on the Pioneer Sideline all season long. And that is all the time we have for this week. Mike?
Join us next week at the same Pioneer time.
The same Pioneer channel.
And the same Pioneer Sideline.